Hello and welcome to this webinar with Luxoff, hosted by Car Design News and me, James McLaughlin, editor of CDN. Now, before we get started, some quick housekeeping. Just to remind you to have a strong internet connection, or you may lose us, and maybe get near a router, or even better, if you connect your machine via an Ethernet cable, that will certainly do the trick. And we do recommend that you wear headsets for the best sound quality. And of course, if you're having problems, you can restart your computer and rejoin the platform in the best IT advice of all time. Now, so today we're going to hear from Luxoff, which is a design data development arm of DXC Technology, providing bespoke end-to-end technology solutions for mission-critical systems, products, and services. Luxoff's UX design solutions encompass prototyping, design, and development of human-machine interfaces and graphical user interfaces. This enables you to create long-term programs and customizable design systems that exhibit and differentiate your brand identity through the user journey. Now, their key user experience solutions are concept car and HMI design, digital cockpit UX design, and digital experience and mobility services. And here to tell us a little bit more about this is Thomas Zimek. He's a visual and technical design lead at Luxoff Automotive and is right now located in Stuttgart, Germany. Thomas has led various automotive projects around the world in the last few years and brings today a few successful design stories that he has shaped with his team. And he's going to share some of the lessons and keep expanding the ideas of new ways to approach the subject of rapid innovation. Now, you can put your questions to Thomas in the questions box and comments in the chat, and I will do my best to put them to Thomas. But with that, that's enough for me, I think. So welcome, Thomas, to the virtual stage. How are you doing? Okay, ready to go?
Yes, everything okay. I parked my car, so we can start.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very appropriate background. Okay, well, look, without too much more ado from me, I will let you carry on. Enjoy.
Okay, so I think that I will ask first of all one of the most common questions in the recent times. So besides like that someone is muted, so also if you can see my screen. I hope so that James, you can see my screen. So thank you very much, James, for the introduction. So my name is Tomasz Zimek. I'm working in a creative field since more than a decade and since 8.5 years at Luxoft in our automotive division. Today, in the next 35 minutes, I would like to open for you some new or fresh perspectives of how we are working and thinking about innovation. Of course, I want to also underline again that in case you would have any questions, please drop them to the right side into the Q&A area, because we would really looking forward for some nice discussion in the end of the presentation. So I would first start to say that it was a really fun challenge for me to just summarize, finally to just stop and summarize all of the experience in the different projects from the different teams around the world, how we in the last year shaped innovation. So actually to have a bit of the library that you will find in the next slides. So in this case, let's start from some cold numbers from the Harvard research, which actually are quite contradicting from themselves. So first of all, we as the team members or the leaders, we are usually aiming that the innovation is one of the top priorities in our work. Nevertheless, the big majority of those, it's actually failing. This also underlines the problem that it's and challenge that it's ahead of us, that in the times that are right now coming. So what is really interesting is that the answer to this failure stands in a very human and not a technological problem, which I will try to explain within this 30 minutes. So continuing with some cold facts, just the last one, don't worry, it's about the kind of the fresh ISO guidelines which describe innovation. As you can see on the screen, they are a really cold statement, which actually during this webinar we will try to a bit more humanize and find really some answers to what actually the innovation is. So following this question, I would like to come to, of course, these two pictures that you might know from the 60s. So often when we are thinking about the innovation, we are actually thinking about something that's breaking the status quo, that it's really the breakthrough in some specific field. When I was younger and during my studies, I was lucky enough to cross my path several times with one of the most interesting designers of Poland last decades, who was Janos Kanyevsky. He was working for multiple brands like Pininfarina, Ferrari, and also not automotive ones, also looking for the cities, how they are shaped. So actually here, what is really interesting is that he was the visionary designer. So he was looking much far away to the future, which is of course the good thing to do. Nevertheless, he was also able to just connect this to our normal life. So the life of the future customers, or the customers right here and now, that we can offer. So this is also what I wanted just to bring us these two pictures from the 60th year ago. So actually on the left side with the autonomous driving, we are already here after 60 years. We are able in some parts of the world to experience that. On the other hand, on the right side with the flying cars, it might unlikely not happen. So here, going in the same direction, we should talk about some innovation curve. So innovation curve, putting it in the easy words, it's by freeing yourself from the current curve you are on, or your product or your service. And usually on the next curve that you release yourself happens the greatest innovation. Unfortunately, it's really hard to do, which we will try to make easier during the next slides. So here I wanted to bring the example from one of the TED Talks from Guy Kawasaki in regards to ice harvesting idea from the 19th century. So first of all, ice 1.0 was ice harvesting, which was only connected with harvesting ice in the winter with the horses. The ice 2.0 became the reality when we built the ice factories, which could just generate the ice throughout the whole of the year. Nevertheless, there should be also transported to the shops or to the customers. The ice 3.0 happened when we just invented freezers. What is really interesting in this innovation curve, which of course took quite a long time, is that none of the ice harvesting companies became the ice factories, and none of the ice factories became the freezers producers. So going more into our field, so automotive, or as I would like to more call it, the mobility. So the mobility 1.0 was basically powered by the animals, by the horses. It was often also the individual means of transport, and later expanded to more public transport. With 1888, with Bertha Benz and other innovators like Henry Ford, we turn into the mobility 2.0 powered with the engines, the different engines. Of course, I will be not going into detail here. So what might be the mobility 3.0 that we are right now experiencing? It's still not so clear, but we are a part of it. Therefore, we can really just influence it and see what it might be in the main case, and also how we can mix them up, which is also really important in mixing the ideas. It could be shared mobility, which also brings a interesting part of how we should this time approach the new innovation in case of the impact to our environment around us, and also how we live. So shared mobility right now with the new young generation, it's also the fact that people change their mind about having the possession in the car. So right now it's not the matter of having the car, but just moving from the point A to B. So basically getting back to the roots. It's also the autonomous vehicles mentioned also in the slide before, or maybe even back to the horses, since it's also still really convenient to just go with the horse to the city, leave it and go to the restaurant to meet with the friends or to the gallery, and then the horse will find his own way to the parking space, and even if there wouldn't be any space, can just make the one step to the left by the other horses, and all of the space will be. So this is a really interesting part about the secondary impacts. And what I would like to bring also in case of the speed of the innovation curve is about the inspiration of the current technological companies like the software and hardware companies that we are more in the daily life experiencing. So here, of course, I wanted to bring from the last month the keynote from Apple that presented the MacBooks Pros. So of course, it also was really interesting for us as a team because most of our team members using MacBooks for our daily work. What was really important here is that from the presentation to the order process was the matter of 2 days. And right after, to experience it, to get the product delivered, it was the matter of 1 or 2 weeks, which is a really crucial because then the client was able to experience the product really fast and therefore make the connection. So as I mentioned, we are living in the exponential age, so it will go only faster. Therefore, we need to focus on shortening the curve and iterations in order to still survive, following the thought from Charles Darwin that we need to learn to adapt to this fast pace in order to survive in our, of course, business environment then. So another part of this, what I wanted to bring here, is about the goals and what we are showing right now into the client. So between the concept versus product. So here, knowing that this webinar could be joined by really different people from the different automotive company, I wanted to be on the safe side and just use the example from the 1990s from Pontiac called Sunfire. It was a really interesting concept with the way how it was shaped with the doors solutions, with the panoramic roof, especially in the year 1990. When you were really hyped by this product and you wanted to order it in a Pontiac, then 5 years after we're picking it up from the dealership, you would then pick up this Pontiac Sunfire, which of course shows how the difference is what we are showing in the concept and what we are able to really provide to the customers. Another example, which is also from the last weeks, it's the augmented reality glasses from Meta, previously Facebook. So I made a screenshot. It was a really nice part of the presentation showing a way how we can use in the future augmented reality, especially in the current times of pandemic, to connect better with people. This cooperation of Meta will be done with Ray-Ban company, so famous from their glasses. Nevertheless, here, if the customer would like to really just find out the way, like, okay, this is something that I would need right now, it's a cool concept, and I would like to experience it, actually, you would need to put on your Ray-Bans such a device like, for example, shown in the picture with a much more narrower range of view, which is really interesting, I would say, how we can really sell this idea and also how we can bring it into the reality and our normal activities. So summarizing this first part of the webinar for showing for searching for some pain points when we are looking on the innovation currently, it's first of all that we are not connecting our concept, our ideas to the reality, so our daily life. So the reality is far away from concept. So our customers cannot really feel what it could be when they would be really having this product available. The second part is really connected one. So it's about the long time between concept and offering. So even though we would be able to deliver the product, the same one as we had in the concept, then it's also the matter of the time of this delivery. So therefore, if we don't really provide it enough fast for such a hungry customers of the purchasing innovation right now, we will lose the innovation vibe here actually. So the way how it is important here, because the other products will be also there around. So before coming to the and starting the second part of our webinars to hunt for some ingredients, I would like to ask you a question. Where you get your best ideas? Since in order to be innovative, it's of course on the baseline to have a lot of the ideas. So I would like to ask if you could just answer this question. It could be the place, it could be the activity as well that you can keep in as the one word, and you can put into the chat window. And I would like to ask you, James, if you could read to me a couple of answers here.
Well, at the moment we're just seeing, I'm just checking the chat, but I can speak from my own experience that most of my ideas come when I'm nowhere near the office or anywhere where I'm actually supposed to be doing creative work. They generally come to me when I'm on the bus, when I'm in the bath, and yeah, no, various other places that are certainly nowhere near my actual place of work. I'm just going to keep checking it in the chat.
Okay, I see it.
How about yourself, though, Thomas? Where do you have your best ideas? I think this is a question for you. You're the creative here.
Yeah, so of course, and we can also like follow up this in the Q&A session as well. And yeah, so for me, the best path that I think that this has already become a part of my work is to go cycling with my bike, to go for the 2-3 hours of cycle around Stuttgart. Then I actually like not thinking about anything, and surprisingly, a really complex ideas comes to my mind that I have to really stop and note into my smartphone. Okay, so I think
just jump in there. I've got a few comments, but a lot of people seem to have their ideas when they're walking, which speaks to sort of sleep dreams, Pinterest, the beach. Yeah, there's some good stuff here, but one thing that's keeping this all together in common is no one's in their offices or in their studios, I don't think. Anyway,
cool.
I'll let you carry on.
Yeah, and that sounds really good for me actually, because this really follows my next slide, so it makes sense. It's about the 3B syndrome. 3B stands for bed, bath, and bus. So that's the interesting concept proved by some researchers that actually the most ideas that we are usually having, it's in the activities or the places, habits as well, I would call it, where we have the repeatable, really known to us actions. Because of that, we are relaxing our brain and subconsciously connecting to our why, to the things that are really bothering us or right now are really important for us. So this is really interesting because then we are really influenced by the environment more than the external motivation. And this is kind of a really good perspective ahead of the time right now, that we will be challenged with connecting the virtual and on-site communication and cross activities within our teams. So where we will have to more look on how we can really make it working and harvesting ideas. So it's not actually the office what is really interesting, where we are the most of the time. So following this idea for relaxing brain, I would like to focus on the 3 main groups of ingredients that we found with a team the most interesting one, and the one that we can hunt in these areas for the best way for the innovation. So first of all is vision, second is tooling, and third automation. Let's start with vision, because the most important, and it's all about the mindset. So mission first, it's all about the present status. So description, what your company or our team is doing. So for example, for Harley Davidson, it's a really nice statement that says that they want to bring the experience of motorcycling by expanding and delivering their current product lines and services. Here, following as well the Linda Hill from her book Collective Genius, it's really important that the mission should be clear. So we not set and execute it as the leaders, for instance, but we need to really make it as a constant emotional part of our work in order to bring it as well as the part, follow it, of our lives. Another part is like going to the future, so with the vision. So vision is often connected to our goals, the way where we want to go in the next 2, 3, 5 years, where we want to have expand our services organization. Here, it's also a really great example of Apple, for instance, that they want to keep producing the great products which will also revolutionize their market and change the world, how we approach it. Nevertheless, it's really important to connect the present and the future, so mission and the vision, and then we will achieve the mantra. Mantra is often the 2-3 words statement which describe what we are actually doing and what we are aiming to do in the future as well and expand. So following the examples from the previous mission and vision, for Harley Davidson, it's the personal freedom. For Apple, that many of you can know really well, it's think different. And for our UXD department at Luxoft, it's experience mobility revolution. It's to experience it right now by what we are actually doing in our current daily work, but also to work for the future, to go not along our curve, but to jump ahead of it. As the bonus information, I would say that most of us might know the Nike statement about just do it that have on the different clothes. So this is the marketing statement. And if you would be interested, please double check in Google what is actually the mantra of Nike, which is, in my opinion, a really good one. So let's go further. So mission and vision gives us idea what we do. And in this case, we tend to work harder. It's really important to know who we are and also what is in the middle of this graphic, so why. So why we do what we are doing, so the purpose. Only then we can work smarter. So this is, of course, the diagram, the golden circle diagram from Simon Sinek. I'm really would like to just recommend this. It's not, I do not want to go deeper into this topic in this webinar because we have too less time. But if you might be interested, please, in the last page, you will also have the book corner and you can just follow up on this. Nevertheless, here, I would like to take this why from the center and move it into the more multi-level structure. So the structure that consists of the why of the organization. So why we are doing what we are actually working on and what is the reason for that. Then what Simon Sinek called the nested whys, so the whys of the team that we have. So then it's like much more individual whys that we can just shape with the smaller groups, with the more specific specialization that really reflects the more closer goal for each of our team member. The last part, the last level here, is the individual why. I mark these whys with a different color because obviously we cannot influence those. But what we can do is to help our team members to make aware about the importance of why and also to just find this why or the ways how to find this why. And that's a great achievement that also ensure the long-term motivation and also for the innovation is to have at least partly connected team why with the individual why, which obviously the team, the nested why, it's following the organization why. So for me, my personal why is to unlock my and other perspectives to find the feel of freedom. The freedom could be understood in a different ways. The freedom to change the places, the freedom to move through the places. So with the automotive part that we are operating, right? So the part luckily of my work, and also like in the sports, that's my big passions of cycling mentioned before, and paragliding. So why I'm talking about this, it's because of the multi-level structure of the company that we are able to create to become a platform to grow each team member personal goals. So we know why we are doing things. Therefore, we need to focus on the second part, which is the tools. So we have right now a lot of tools available on the market. So we can really choose from the really similar groups of the applications. Therefore, I gathered here several applications that we tested, we used. It's only just also the small selections. There are much more of them because I want to underline here that the key is right now not which kind of tool you are using, but how you are using it. Therefore, in the tooling section, I wanted to focus more, first of all, of the two ingredients, this time of the bigger part of the bigger continuous one. So first, starting from these two processes, it's about the brainstorming and user testing. So especially in the current times, we were also pushed to just mix up our online and offline attendance to the brainstorming sessions, for example, in our team and with our customers. So for this, we personally found in our team the best working Miro. And what I have to underline is that it's also extended the time when we can collect the ideas, which follows the freebie syndrome part. Another on the right side is the user testing topic, which of course also accelerated the way how we can produce the experience first for us and also during the user tests. So why I'm saying about this? Because when connecting those two processes, we can achieve the continuous one, which we can call the creative workshops. That could be as well internal and external ones. So here, actually, in the bottom, you have the three pictures of the area from which I'm right now speaking from. It's a really nice area with even the car standing. And with the creative workshops, I would like to divide those parts for these three chronological steps. So first of all, when using the tools like Miro, we can harvest the ideas, also the main goals and directions, even before the brainstorming would start. Afterwards, we can, during the workshop use, of course, based with this on this information, much faster get into whatever standard works for you best with the whiteboard as it's shown here, with the markers or anything like that. Also, during this time, we often have at least one designer who is taking care about prototyping with the tool like Prototype. Therefore, we can already bring into the testing during this brainstorming session, this workshop, some wireframes design or even motion design to test first within the brainstorming session and also beyond. So even when the workshop will end, we can still send it to our other teams that could be interested, to motivated people that would like to contribute for user tests, or also anyone from the client side. So this is really interesting part of how we can really spread this idea and also go to the way that everyone can come back to it. So one of this kind of results of the internal workshop was the tool Louvre that we created to make each designer, even without the programming experience, go into another dimension, so for the virtual reality. So this particular project was created with the rapid development approach right before the Car HMI award that we won with this concept. So it was a really good fun because the customer for whom we were creating this was actually the designer, so ourselves. So we really well know what is the why standing behind this tool and what are the goals of this tool. Therefore, we were able to create really fast and right now still developing with the same motivation this concept, which we are using right now more and more often. And as you can see right now on this video, either having it on a display or with the Oculus or the other tools from the VR, you can really test out the screens, the design, animations as well, according to the environment, from the ergonomical perspectives, and even from the sharpness of the screen. So this is, so if someone would be interested in this tool, please approach me, of course, also through after the webinar through the Louvre, Louvre doesn't have this right now, the feature right now, so through the LinkedIn. So we have, we know why we are doing things, and we have tools in our hands to make it in a creative way. The third part is about automation. So I would like to here start with the thought from English mathematician Alfred North Whitehead, that in order to advance, we need to automate the repeatable part of our activities. So following this part and idea, I would like to show you, I think, the really well-known 4 quadrants diagram, also populated by Stephen Covey. And as you remember, always the Q2, so the quadrant 2 was the most important one. So the not urgent, but important. This is actually also valid for the innovation. So the most opportunities to harvest the innovation, it's in the quadrant 2. Therefore, we should learn as much as possible to automate Q1, Q3, and Q4. In this case, I also need to underline that what we also discovered with our team in China, in Shanghai, throughout the several years of work together on the multiple projects in Asia, is that the key here is not to delegate, but to automate in such a high demanding and innovative market as China, for example. So where we could actually find the best path to automate. So here is the atomic design approach that every good HMI system follows. So I would like here to start to focus on templates. So at the part right before the product. And here I would like to bring a couple of examples how this could be approached. So here, first of all, I wanted to say about the libraries. So when using Figma or Sketch, we are able to create a really big libraries, which are not only related to the projects, of course, to allow us to create a big impact on the multi-screen, fast changing interfaces, but also to create the library that is collecting the best ideas throughout the months, years, so that in case someone is having another problem to just solve or think about the new innovation, can just look on these ideas and also combine them together, which I think is a really great ignition for the new ideas. What is also really important to underline here for the Figma or Sketch is that with this tool, we were able also to connect UX, UI, motion, and even software departments, which is really a great achievement because then we connected more relaxed brain into the way of the process thinking, which is a really great part how you can also innovate in your teams. Another part, which I couldn't, of course, miss is Android Automotive OS principles. So with such a design system, we can also automate a lot of things to take the baseline first and then focus on the customization. This is also really important to follow this route in order to really make it successful for such a design system like Android Automotive OS, in order to really get it into the cars, differentiated slightly by the customizations by each brand, and also make it faster to experience to the users, which is, of course, in general, aim of all of us designers to bring this kind of innovation the fastest way to the customers. The last but not least, of course, we need to make it move. So it's about the micro animation. So we are also working on creating some libraries with the scripts and also emulators. So actually, you might think that emulators could be also related to the Android Automotive OS. It is, but of course, with emulators, we can also experience the default animations and then on the top of it, make some unique custom ones, which of course, much faster shrinking the communication process and of course, welcome more of the new ideas and hopefully later innovation. So this is the end of the second part. So this was the quite of the journey. So now is the question if we were able to just find out the golden grail of innovation that will be working in each environment. Of course not, but we can exercise and summarize everything what we talked today and try to make some quotation. So first of all, we can just play with it in the way like innovation equals to new knowledge, harvested with the open-minded people knowing their purpose within the safe environment. So the safe environment that welcomes the failure and also uses the creative tooling, as we mentioned before. We can also even make it easier and make that innovation is the connection. So actually connection with our own whys, with our own purpose, of course. Also about idea with the connection of the idea that we have with the real life of the people for which we are creating the solutions. So actually, such an empathic approach to putting ourselves into someone else's shoes, it's also the baseline for human-centric process, which is a really great part of the innovation. So taking the last shoot to the innovation, especially the rapid one, in the more 3D environment, I would say that rapid innovation, first of all, of course, consisting of listening. So listening by this, listening to ourselves and listening to our users, and throughout building the trust and celebrating the failure. It's also tooling. So on-site virtual tools that we should use with everyone, extended throughout the brainstorming only sessions that also will include fun and humor. To have enough time for using those tools and also listening, we have to automate. So this obviously it's to save a time and have more relaxed brains. And whole of the rapid innovation, oh, sorry for that, you already saw the main part of the quotation, which I wanted to show, which is of course the meaning. So the meaning for us and for the users. So of course with the this could also create the long-lasting effect and the mindset that we can shape in our teams, and also when delivering to our customers, in order to ensure that innovation will not be just the one shot in our teams, but the long-lasting one. So here my presentation ends, but of course not the webinar. I am really looking forward for some questions that I hope so that we were able to gather during this presentation. Of course, you can make a screenshot, photo, scan this page. Also in the left upper corner and bottom, you have some summary of the other parts that were also inspiring for us as the addition to what we just identified within our team. So in this case, I would like to hand over to you, James, right now.
Thanks very much, Thomas. Just excuse my slightly weird blue screen that comes up before I appear. I'm quite sure what it is, but anyway, I'm here now. No, thank you very much indeed, Thomas. Very, very interesting presentation. Some very, very interesting visual references as well. I particularly like Indiana Jones being of a certain age. But I have a few questions, and I would urge you guys to chuck your questions into the chat, which I'll put to Thomas. But to kick things off, I think I wondered what tool or approach you for you has made the biggest impact to your to your team's work when you're considering things like speed and time.
Yeah, so that's actually a good question. So we showed here a couple of approaches. So I have to say that the fastest one that we had was the tooling. So the introduction of tooling. Of course, it was the big shift, but it allows us really to just merge more the UX, UI, and also the other parts, like I mentioned, motion, or even the software part. So I think that the tooling would be the fastest one, but it's not the most important part. So I think that the important is the part of vision. So really finding our whys, that we are, I won't hide that we are still working on this, and it's a never ending, I would say, process that we should take a part of our lives. And this, I would say, this is the most important one that brought a biggest change. But of course, it's the longest one, so taking the longest time and efforts.
Actually, you going back a little bit to your presentation, you focused on the why, and I think that is an interesting question. Do you think that enough focus is given on that particular question? Do people ask why enough? I think is what I'm getting at.
I think that not, and it was also like a big fight when I was preparing this presentation and tried to balance the sections that I was presenting, because for me, why should take 80% of this presentation? So as I also mentioned at the beginning, so surprisingly, this challenge of become an innovative company, the team, and especially in the rapid pace, it's not really the problem of the technological part, but it's actually the problem of the human factor. So it's something like about us, that we have to really just see the connection and the reason that it's not only like another day to tick, but it's also something that we are finding more in our work. And this is also something what we are really want to focus. And also, I really would like to attract everyone in this webinar to also think about this, if not yet, or if yet, if already made some actions to already push even more efforts to that, because actually all of the other things are addition to the clear, lasting good mindset to shape the creativity, ideas, harvesting, and in the end, innovation.
Good show, yeah. No, I just sort of going back down, it's a bit more into the nitty gritty, I suppose. You mentioned Sketch and Figma, and I wondered how you compare Adobe and Photoshop or Illustrator. Are they still valid design tools, would you say, when you compare those types of technologies together?
Yes, of course. So they are still valid. I don't want to cross them out. So we are in general using the Adobe package since a lot of years. We still use it for the animations, as I showed in the automation part for the motion script. So here was there was shown After Effects, and yeah, with the scripts you are really able to shrink the Google searches. So that's something what we are still using. Nevertheless, what we were usually facing when using the UX or UI tools like Visio, Axure, or Photoshop, as the question stated, we were really disconnected from each other. So these tools like Figma or Sketch are really connecting the people together with the work, so that you can really access faster and see what is happening on the every side of the production of the real product. And this is also one of the keys to shorten the communication path. In order to be able to also cross-check the more ideas, because often, like, it shouldn't be that one part of the team is only making their one model and no one is taking care about this. So I think that the key is also to just exchange the ideas, to looking on the models in a different ways, from the fresh ways usually, like the different teams are doing. So I think that this is also like really a one big key for the innovation, which actually somehow I was able to come from Photoshop and Figma to as well the vision part.
Yeah, no, very, very nicely joined together there, Thomas. I would say there's a question here from the audience, one of the audience members, from Paolo, and I might break it up into two parts actually, Paolo, because it's a fairly long question. But starting with, if new meta and VR trends are evolving so fast, how will this affect the HMI experience in your mind, Thomas? And there is a second part to this regarding sort of VR glasses, but I'll let you go for the first issue.
Yes, so I think that we had a lot of tests, and I think that most of the companies with the VR glasses, and right now we were able to include it, which influence our way of working, and really like also how we can test the systems, as I showed with the Louvre tool. Nevertheless, it's also like, in my opinion, just a step ahead of the augmented reality part. So I think that the VR we should more treat as the testing field. So the testing field of the products that we are doing right now, and also the testing field of what we can achieve with the augmented reality when this will be available. Of course, now we are again like coming back to this concept design gap that we have, and actually on the designer, so specialist part, we are also experiencing the same. So when trying to experience already the augmented reality, that actually could influence really heavily every of our daily work, about our daily activities, also the mobility part. It's something that we try to mimic with the VR, the most often the AR experience, to be ready for that.
I was going to say, well, I think you've covered it all off there, Thomas, so I won't bother going back to the second part. I have a more general question for you, and it's kind of, I suppose, slightly more emotive. But why, you mentioned failure a few times at the start. Why is failure, do you think, important to you or a design team?
Yeah, so I have to say that often, actually, also I can give the example because I think that this works the best. So I think that most of us as the designers, also I can hide like in our teams in the past, we have a lot of them failure connected with the hardware and the software that we are creating. So the way how we wanted to just create this on our crisp MacBook screens, and also turning it to the hardware inside of the cars in this case. So this is also something that was a lot of the failures on the go, and the problematic path that was enlarging the time of when we were able to just really see it inside of the car, or even build the real objects like the car standing behind me and really experience that. So with such a failures, we were able actually to think about idea that was somehow outside of our first what you could think about, especially like 4 or 5 years ago, our specialty, and that become our specialty. So this is actually like also the matter of this freeing yourself from the curve. So in this case, I have to say that the failure is really like motoring the part of how we can accelerate and make the rapid new ideas that we didn't ever thought about. And this is, I think, the key of the failure, in my opinion. So like really start to thinking about something that you didn't even thought about when sitting down to the table with the others.
I suppose, and it ties back a little bit. So you showed a Pontiac project from earlier in your presentation, which I found really fascinating, because it did sort of tell a kind of real quite tragic journey of a high-minded ideal that became something else entirely. And I wondered how we avoid those kind of scenarios, because no one wants that. But there has to be an understanding, I suppose, that it isn't always going to be perfect, but it can't be so far from the original idea that we're nowhere.
Yeah, so I think that this is also connected with the failure part, actually. I suppose, because this also with this rapid innovation that we are providing by also the companies like Apple or Google. So they are providing products that often have a lot of bugs inside. So this is also not a perfect, the perfect things that they are providing. Even with the mentioned MacBook Pro, when people just catch it and start testing after 1-2 weeks, they saw this notch in the upper part, which was hiding the status line actually. So it was like unusable in this middle area. So and then of course it was the fast notch on the top of it in order to just make it work. So this is also the part of kind of the failure that has to be also learned in both cases, I would say. And when not going into this Sunfire example, which actually it was just an example, as I mentioned, and I could bring a lot of them from the current times, but of course I wanted to stay on the safe side when discussing also when preparing this presentation. So I just choose just the nice characteristic examples. So I have to say that it's also about how we want to really shape the experience of this design in steps. So this measurable and understandable steps, you know, for our users. So it's exactly like with the visionary designer, this Janos Kanyevsky that I mentioned. So he was looking already on the cities without the cars, but then no one would actually understand this. And even if you would provide this solution, no one would be prepared for that. And actually, I think that this is also the part of the Sunfire failure, you know. So like that it was really the matter of providing something new, something really great looking to ignite the thinking of people. But in the end, when offering this the same tool, it was killed in the production. So we have to really just take a look and really be able to, first of all, make the people understand the steps, and that we also have the not perfect products in the end. And second of all, be really careful what we are showing actually, to not really be too far away. Otherwise, we will have the examples to hurry up as the Sunfire 5 years later.
So it's about communication, would you say? That's taking people on with you on a short journey.
Yes, I think so, because like the really important part is how you are really looking from the perspective of people. And this is, of course, as you said, exactly. So this is like the communication part. So how you are communicating with your users. And right now, this path as well, it's really shortened. So with the user testing or even allowing to access some of the brainstorming sessions, is like you can really shorten the way how you can harvest the comments, the feedbacks from the users, and also make them aware that, okay, this is what we are providing to you, and in the next 1-2 months it will be upgraded. So this is also the topic that we need to think in the way like it's not so hard to make it. So like with these updates through the air, that right now it's more or less the standard in automotive as well, that user doesn't have to buy the new car. but just refresh the system.
Changing tack slightly, there's a line that struck me in your presentation that I found quite interesting, Thomas, and it was to do with working in China. And you said not to delegate, but to automate. And I wondered if you could sort of expand a little bit on about that idea for me.
Yes, of course. So what I wanted to underline by this, it's something what we discover that often in such a markets, like as the example, it's China, and I think that we know it quite well, many of us, is that we have the really fast pace of deliveries. So to just deliver the product. The thing is that it's really risky to deliver so fast the product. What we need to ensure is that it's also like the really innovative product. So something that is also bringing some fresh new ideas into the picture. And therefore, with the automation, we can achieve that because we are not need more people. We need to include people in more of the thinking about this and testing this, but not actually in spreading the tasks into the more and more people, since this will also kill the innovation and everyone will actually focus on the daily work. And this is also what it's our big goal, that it's still something that we are, of course, in progress to achieve in order to really automate what is possible, because then you can really sit and achieve this feeling of relaxed brain, you know. So as you are right before going to the sleep, taking the fresh shower in the morning, or going for some cycling, basically. So this is what should be in the end our end goal.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, and yeah, we spoke about it. You know, this idea of automation of the prosaic to give yourself the space, the human space, to go for those walks on the beach, to go and watch, as Paolo does for his. I just noticed in his chat, he watches futuristic films for inspiration. You know, but this is the end goal, to actually give yourself the kind of intellectual space to innovate or dream up new ideas, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly the really good summary, you know, because in the creative world, actually, it's the most important to have enough space for these thoughts. And often what is also was underlined with the 3D syndrome, that not really the office with this kind of external motivation, I would call it in a nice way, it's not really the part which we can really successfully achieve this, actually. So this is more about really be influenced by outside. So it's much better, as I think that most of us experience that when we have the hard day at work and it comes the afternoon, maybe sometimes it's better if you feel that you are really blocked with the new ideas and making in the really like just to make the actions. It's sometimes much better to just take a walk, go to the forest for the 1 hour, get back, because then even if you took this 1 hour, you can really speed up with some totally fresh perspective, which is also known from art as well.
Yes, I feel like I'd like you to email the management here. No, I'm absolutely joking. We all have plenty of time to think here at Car Design News. But yes, I think it's almost as much changing scene or scenario can be as much a kind of can kickstart ideas as anything else. We're sort of I'm just having a look. There aren't any more questions, I don't think, from the audience, and I'm sort of coming to the end of my questions as well. So I think it might be a time, well, maybe I'll just finish with one for you, Thomas, and another sort of slightly highbrow, maybe philosophical one. But what do you think is the one thing that we are not talking about in terms of design that we should be as a creative class of designers, I suppose?
Yeah. So what actually we are not talking is about basically the end experience. So I think so, because like this is also what I don't want to every time follow the presentation that I created, but on the other hand, it's still, I think, in my thinking, like even if the second thought right now makes actually sense. So what we are often don't think is about our work and life balance that was becoming much more into the focus with this forced innovation, I would call it, by our companies within the last 1.5 years with the remote work often. So this is, I think, something what is really not emphasized even more, and I would like also to emphasize this even more again, because this is also like how we are really having the time to design things, you know. So this is like something that we are not repeating the similar patterns in all because we don't have a time, you know. So this is really the bottleneck of many of the teams right now on the market. They are basically are overloaded and not really able to think in a creative way. And this is also stops the innovation or the progression of the design in anyhow you think. So this is also like to underline that even though we just showed here several tools, the specific tools, as you can see in the tooling corner in the bottom, that we think they are really looking at how we can improve the designs and what is the future of the design. But this is only the examples. It's the examples of the way how we want to approach the design in more collaboration way to connect this relaxed brain. And this is, I think, something what is often really skipped in the matter of the design. We are often expecting some tooling in the hand. And this is something what, in my opinion, we should still change the mindset a little bit.
Great stuff. Well, I think that's a really nice note to end on. Thomas, thank you so much for sharing your presentation with us today. It was very, very interesting indeed. I hope the audience enjoyed and found that informative. Obviously, we'll point you to the kind of scan the QR code if you can, or visit Luxoft's website to find out a little bit more. But for now, just thank you very much for joining us, and thank you again, Thomas, and we will see you next time, hopefully at a car show, perhaps. Who knows?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone attending, and of course my teams to contribute to this webinar. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, guys.
Have a good rest of the day. Ciao.
Ciao.